So today it's the iOS sampler on GarageBand, a hugely powerful bit of kit. Now the iOS GarageBand program itself will allow 32 tracks, but if you use all the plugins like the pianos or the sampler or any other instruments, it's 16 in maximum tracks if you use all of them, because they are stereo sounds, so they require a stereo capability and therefore 2 tracks. So I'm going to create a document and I'm going to ask it to open me the sampler. There we go. Now I'm going to use only the mic on GarageBand. You can see the level meter going up and down there in response to my voice. So I want to have a bass drum first. So something like this, the old AKG C3000 mic box case will do me just fine. So if I do something like this, so I'm going to start. Now, what it did was it started when I triggered it with an audio level, so that you can sort of, you haven't got lots of silence at the start. Now you can play this back with the GarageBand keyboard, or I've got my USB, well, it's a digital piano, but it's got a USB output that you can connect with the camera kit. It's like a USB to lightning connector that you can buy from Apple. Only use the genuine ones, don't use the cheap ones because they don't work. So I want my bass drum sound. Now that's not very bassy. Never mind. There are things we can do about this. Now if I hold this down, you can hear the sound, all the sound afterwards as I was going over to press the stop key. We can trim the sample by just moving it back towards the beginning and then trying again. Okay, that's absolutely fine. We can keep that. Now, just if you click and hold the beginning, it'll zoom in. There we go, so that you've got a bit more fine control, fine view over your waveform. But that's pretty good. Now, the shape option allows you to dictate the attack and release times to a certain extent, and the decay. So what I'm going to try and do is just move the attack very slightly. Now, if I move it far enough along, it won't actually capture any of the sample at all. I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep it like that. It's a little bit clicky at the beginning, but there are things that we can do about that. If I go into my settings at the top here, we can start playing with the EQ. So I'm going to take the treble down and the bass up. And then play it slightly lower. I think that sounds all right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just press play, and I'm just going to put a bass drum on every beat. Okay, so I was rushing the metronome there, but I'm just going to go back to my main window and I can see what I've put there. I basically put a 4-bar loop. So I'm just going to go into the settings. Oh, I've just come out of settings. There we go. Track settings. I'm just going to quantize that because it was slightly awful. And then I'm just going to quantize it to a quarter note because that's the fastest thing that I had there, just every beat. So they are quarter notes. So I'm just going to go back into the EQ, and I'm just going to have a little bit of a play with that because it wasn't excessively good with that EQ. Now you can go to more plugins here. The visual EQ, there we go. That's kind of what I've done to it. I'm going to take the treble down even further. That's not bad. That'll do me just fine. Right, snare drum. So I'm going to open another track out now. Again, using the sampler. So this is on a separate track, so I'm going to use the same plugin that I had. Here's a DI box, metal DI box. Okay, so I'm going to record that and see what happens with this. Now there's a little bit of a crack in there, which is kind of what I'd want anyway. Maybe this. I'm going to try that instead. I'm going to undo that, new sample. Okay, let's see what that one sounds like. Ooh. I tell you what, I'm going to go with that. So I'm just going to trim the end of that so that I've got a nice clean sample. But I'm going to play with the settings again. Now, that's all right. Now, what I could also do with this is to put it through an overdrive. And what that would do is accentuate the sort of higher harmonics, which is what you'd want with a snare drum. So maybe if I try... Let's see what happens if I try and record that. So I'm going to put that every second and fourth beat. So you'll hear the bass drum going with it. Okay, at this stage I'm just going to shorten the song section to... oh, it is on 4 bars, that's fine. So it'll go round and round that loop, just a 4-bar thing. So I'll just come out of that. There we go. So. Notice that little offbeat snare. I want that to be quieter. So I'm just going to go to my main page. And then I'm going to go into the edit window. And I'm going to find that offbeat snare. And then I'm going to do the same with the other one as well at the end. Right, I've got to quantize these up now. So the quickest thing I now have is a 16th note there. So I'm going to go into the settings, track settings, quantization, straight, and the 16ths. Fine. So at this point you think, well, why are you doing this? Why don't you use one of the fantastic drum kits that are there? And yes, they are absolutely fantastic. But in this day and age, we need to push boundaries. We need to have individuality. We need to have all sorts of things going on that just make things different and just ring in the changes. So now for a hi-hat. Don't know what to do with this now. Search around for something to scrape. Or I could use my vocals. I could go... So, new track, sampler. Now, I'm going to record 2 sounds. Why am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to have a shoulder hi-hat. So if you hit the hi-hat like that, shoulder, and then a tip one. But I've got to try and make them so that they're pitched the same. So I've got to do 2 separate samples. Here we go. So there's my loud sample. So I'm going to put that into my window there. And I'm going to, this time, I'm going to play the those sounds on every beat and then play the quiet sample on every off beat. Okay, so now I'll go back to my main window and I'm going to open up yet another sampler page and then just do a little hi-hat. Okay, clip that one off. There we go. Fine. Go back to my main window and this time I'm going to record on all the off beats only. So. Okay, so now I've got that in place, I'm just going to quantize that up as well. So track settings, quantization, straight and 16ths. So. Okay, now it's time for a bass sound. How am I going to do this? I can't sing, I can't sing a bass note. So what I'm going to have to do is to try and sample my voice and play it lower. Now that's easier said than done, because when you play a voice lower, it goes like that. So maybe I have to try and pinky and perky up my original voice. And then hopefully I can get the formants of my original voice to appear on the bass. Let's give that a go. Oh, 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 oh. Now, the problem here is that the samples are obviously going to be different lengths when you play them lower. That's going to be an issue. But if I want a short bass line, ow, 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 I'm going to have to cut that off. Now I've got to obviously, if I'm doing a large range of bass line, I can't do that. So maybe what I should have is a sample for low bass and a sample for higher bass. I'm going to keep that for one for me higher bass. So I'm going to record that higher bass note on the offbeats. Okay, so now I need a lower bass note. Doesn't matter that it's going to be a different sound. Might make it interesting. Ooh, ooh, bo, 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 bo. You want to make sure you don't get any little clicks at the end and you don't cut it off too early. But you can also get rid of that if you've got your shape there. You can actually set the release time so that it sort of cuts off straight away. Okay, so I'm going to just go back and record that. Okay, not sure how successful that is, but I'm going to go into my settings, my song settings now, and just increase the bass end on that low note. Okay, I'm getting somewhere with this. Now, I need a keyboard sound now that is going to be where the notes will hold on as long as I want them to, and that's where the next function comes in. So, sampler, I'm going to just record something quite basic. Ooh. So, ooh. Notice the length of the note that I recorded something that was long enough so that my voice would settle down, and I can use the main bit of it, because at the beginning it takes a little while for my voice to settle down. So I'm going to bring in that sample. So it starts. Notice the slight click. We can get rid of that with the attack control. Now I'm going to bring this back before the end of the sample and then hit the loop function. So at the beginning my pitch was a little bit, it wasn't yet settled, so I'm going to bring the beginning of the loop in slightly. So I'm going to bring the attack now slightly. Okay, that's going to work, I think. So I'm going to record something with that sample. Okay, now we could do things like putting a little phaser on that track. So if I go into track settings, plugins and EQ, let's see about putting a micro phaser. See what that sounds like. Okay, so that's working okay. Now I need a little sort of counter line, like a tick tick, like a clavinet. Ding 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 ding. That's a little sharp. Oh. Let's move that back to the beginning. Now, there, it's playing me a C and I sang a G. So this pitch correction will only work if you are singing the note that you're going to play. So, but I wanted to sing a lower note because I want to keep my voice realistic here. But actually, it doesn't matter because you can go back into your sampler and change the fine tune of your sample if it's not right in the main window. So I'm going to just try something with that now. Now, that's not working. It's because I'm still in... If you're still in the tuning mode, it'll play the whoo, it'll play the guide tone as well. So. Okay, now I want a lead line. So I'm going to go back into my reveal another track, back to my sampler. So I'm going to try whistling. Whoa. Okay, a few little problems with that, but I'm going to try and just take the main bit of that. Can you hear the bass wind noise in there? Now that I've got to get rid of that. So, I'm quite happy with the sound, but I need to take the bass away. And maybe a little bit of a compressor. Just to flatten it off a bit. And then I can also maybe add something else just to make it a bit more fun sounding. And maybe a bit of echo perhaps. Okay, now the sample that I've got with that little clavinet-y sort of thing, for me isn't working at the moment. It's not actually, oh, undo that. It's not working terribly well at this stage, so I'm going to cut it at the moment. Oh, it's not that one, because this one was my chord. I think it was that one. No, it wasn't. It was this one. Do beg your pardon. I was looking at the wrong track, the wrong sort of zoom window. There is the power of the iOS sampler. I think you'll agree, just with a few little sounds and just a little bit of fine tuning and some effects, you can get something that is, you know, so it's not on Alchemy, I know. The sounds on Alchemy are amazing, really good. You can see my channel for lots more iOS GarageBand demos, but I think you'll agree this is pretty powerful, and that's just from a mic box and a DI box. I think I used this little MIDI merge box as my snare, and then a few vocal sound effects. You can get notes out of anything, you know, a bottle. You know, if you blow across the top of a bottle into the sampler and use that, maybe you could do that. In fact, I've got, it's even in the right key. My goodness me. Okay. Okay, let's see what settings we can get out of that. Well, let's just record something first. So, that's out of a Budweiser bottle. And there we go. There it is. So, have fun, enjoy, and just create. Don't be scared to go, ow, 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 into a mic. Some people might think you're a bit mad, and yes, we might be. But, you know, in only 20 minutes, we've got this.